So my talk is called Research to Value, but I should have used like a founder's view on the differences between academia and startup research. So as Ellie said, I'm Tomas Tunys. I'm head of research at Rossum, and um, here's a short overview of my presentation. A really quick one-slide presentation about Rossum, what we do, and then my 2 cents, my 2 points about the differences between academia and startup in terms of research. So as Ali said, Rossum was founded about 4 years ago by 3 PhD dropouts, and I'm one of them. So I have some quite of experience with academia. We have right now about 60-ish people, where 10 people are in research, which is quite a big ratio, actually. And there was a time not so long ago where we had more researchers than salesmen, actually. So before I tell you what we do in Rossum, I want you to contemplate about a problem, a real life problem, that somewhere in the world there is a person that prints out a document from a computer and sends it to another company, where someone just takes the document, and rewrites the data from that document into the target system that is basically completely different from the source system. So the endpoints cannot communicate together, or they communicate via a human-centric medium, which is a document, which currently computers cannot understand. And that's kind of the mission of Rossum, or one of the missions, one of the goals is to teach computers to understand documents. So when we started, we thought that it will be just like build a machine learning system, like an engine that will work as a REST API. That 4 years ago, it was the time when it was sexy to have some kind of machine learning API, such as document classification or whatever. So we thought that we will build just an REST API where you can upload a document, be it a PDF or an image, and we will extract the data and present it to you in JSON, let's say. And we thought that that will be it. We can do business and with that, and that we have learned the hard lesson that it's not that easy. And actually, the image on the right, you can see one of the first documents that we processed, and shows kind of the data extracted, the fields highlighted, and it was really just a static page where you could look at the results, and that was it basically. So it was kind of working like send it and pray for the best, and that was the issue basically. Not only it, so we gradually build around this API a whole tool for businesses to effectively communicate. I would dare to say effortlessly, to communicate or deal with a influx of documents into their companies. And yeah, this is how the system kind of changed. And we have like beautiful AI, UI, and AI is also beautiful, but UI where the people can actually validate the data, can set up some business rules for which, if the document is extracted with something like high confidence, it can be automated, and so on. There's a lot of machine learning, ideas goes into it, but you have to kind of wrap it into a great package that actually helps, because the AI, it's just a kind of a hype word. Every startup basically nowadays has AI somewhere in the feature list, and AI is not, or the machine learning models, to be precise, are not perfect, and you need to kind of make up for it. So that's basically what we do at Rossum. Sorry, I'm quite slow. So the first main point, and the main point of my talk is the research goal and the difference, and the main difference in academia and startups when we talk about goals. And yeah, I'll use as an introduction this this is one of my favorite quotes. I think it's called Goodhart's Law, and it's a paraphrase of it. And it says, when a metric becomes a target, it ceases to be a good metric. And it comes in all sorts of different flavors. The one that I kind of chose is more subtle and controversial, maybe, because it's a question, basically the difference between startup and research in startup and academia is basically quite substantial, I would say, and at least from my experience. It's a question of why versus what you are optimizing for. And in a startup, you are basically not, your target is not to beat the next metric or make a state-of-the-art model to say, don't get me wrong, it is, but it's not the main goal. It's just an instrumental goal to deliver a value to someone else or have a greater goal, which in this case of any company, it's just you have to deliver a value to a customer to do business. So it's easy. In case of academia, you just don't have this clear idea of what's your, or maybe you do have, but I don't want to be, I'm talking about in general, that you don't know maybe what's your customer. And that's maybe a huge, or I've definitely fell victim into this mindset of beating the next or being the next state of the art. And I consider it a big mistake, at least at the current moment. So what's the problem from my point of view is of not having a idea of a customer, not like a customer in case of academia, is that you don't care about as much about the code you produce. That means that if you ever publish it, like it might be not usable by others, or it's completely irreproducible. So the others cannot basically take it, run it, and reproduce your results because you are sloppy about careful specification of parameters. And you can see definitely a lot in different publications. You cannot replicate the results. And I would say quite substantial amount of the public research is not reproducible, basically. And the next point is like, you will do all crazy stuff. And don't get me wrong, in a startup, you will do all crazy stuff as well, but you have to make it maintainable and everything. In case of research, you will do crazy stuff just to beat the state of the art and be the best and publish a paper. So you will produce completely unpractical solutions. And one of the examples is quote unquote Netflix prize. I don't know if it's true or not actually, so I don't want to make a false statement, but it just as an example. And I don't know if you know about Netflix prize, but it's really old, I guess. The idea was that the Netflix published anonymized data, and anyone that beat their solution by, I don't know, 10% would get, I don't know how many millions of dollars. And the final solution was actually an ensemble of, I don't know how many groups and different things. So in the end, despite the fact that, yeah, that's the false idea, that they cannot use that solution just because it was produced by all the different like research groups or people. I mean it from the point of view that it was totally unpractical. It was so huge and everything, and you cannot just run it and maintain such huge models and everything. It's just hell of a mess. And that's my like main message is for any researcher in here, is just like find your quote unquote customer and mainly adopt this mindset, like that there should be some bigger goal. I know it's hard because you have to publish it. Yeah, it's, I don't know whether the situation kind of changed in reviews if you, let's say, have the same result as someone else, but your solution is twice as fast, if it's easy to like get it published, but I don't know. But being in it just for the game is also fine. So I don't mean it in, I don't want to force any ideas on anyone. I definitely fell victim to this mindset of beating it, as I said, and I think that was wrong in retrospect. All right, and I would like to, I've made the presentation, and then someone from our researcher just pointed out to me that there was a talk given by Christopher Bishop in NeurIPS like 2 days ago, I guess, and it's really great talk about similar thing I've talked about. It's about like really how you can do basic research. You can argue that this what I said is not applicable in basic research, but that's not entirely true, because you can still do basic research like with applications in today with current technology and everything. You certainly can, and Rossum does that, and as well as their research group. It's a great talk and very motivating. So I encourage you to take a look at it. All right, and that's leave me with the next point, which is the role of a researcher, and again the difference in the academia and startup, which is actually, I would say, is practically the same. It depends on the startup. But if I tell it from the point of view of Rossum, I don't see that much differences per se. Like people maybe have this idea that when you do research in a startup or any company, you will do, I don't know, write some equations on a whiteboard or whatever, and just write some MVP like a code, and that's it. That's certainly not the case. You have to do a lot of work around, and it has to work, and it has to be kind of the same as in academia. You are solving a problem. You have to write a lot of code around just to make the, let's say, your experiments. You want to experiment a lot, so you need to build your own framework to say that you run these multiple experiments, do grid search or whatever. You need to have some kind of analysis, like error analysis tool. So you build a lot of things that actually you will do the same in a startup. That's that. It's really interesting, and this crop is from this paper called Hidden Technical Debt in Machine Learning Systems, which I would say any company or machine learning based company can write their own books about, like, these technical debts and problems they face. So just to go through the points and what might be the differences, I say they are practically the same, but they are also not the same. So arguably more challenging is the research in a startup, because there's a lot more work to do actually, and it has to work, and you work in a bigger team. Same things Peter said before me. And actually you are not facing a clearly defined problem. You might define it for yourself. You need to pick the right metrics, again, to measure it so that you know what you are delivering. You might have to prepare guidelines for data collection. There is also a pressure, like, to deliver on time. There are some like milestones and deadlines that you need to meet, and that's, again, in academia you have to publish, so there are kind of deadlines as well, but it's not that strict, I would say. And in academia you usually do not, you may choose metrics, but they usually need to compare yourself with some other solutions. So you cannot choose maybe the metrics. And data collection, you have to use some publicly available data, again, just to be in perfect situation in order to be reproducible or comparable with the others again. So in the startup, you basically, as a researcher, you have to do all of this for, like, it's much more work, and it has to be, you cannot just code for yourself because you work in a bigger team. So, and that said, you actually, both in academia and startup, and everyone will develop their own framework for like again doing this training, and actually in the case of startup you need to have a deployment. All of that has to be automated, and Rossum is not an exception. I think everyone, there is no such thing as a general framework that you can actually use, because there will be specific needs. Like we have the same situation, like Peter said, that we are retraining the models. It needs to be basically easy to do, automated in like it runs for, let's say there are certain training that run for a long time. It has to be reliable so that it doesn't fail, and if it fails, it has to be again resumable, and so on. So there is a lot more care that needs to be put inside of it, and depending on the size of the startup, it's either a researcher or a research engineer, because in my experience, like researchers are not the best programmers. Maybe that has changed as well, but you know, for in Rossum, definitely at the beginning, most of the work did the researchers, even on the frameworks around that. Yeah, and same applies, basically same idea, I guess, applies to academia. When you are in a research group or as an individual, you will basically need kind of similar way or do things. The framework, you need to build your own framework. The only difference is, again, you can have a Slack. You just, the difference is that you don't have to keep it maintainability when you are on your own. It's your own kind of problem. You are the author, you know most of the things, so you can change it quickly. But once you are working with a bigger team, it might be a problem. So that's that. You don't need to care about deployment. Maybe, I don't know, if you are in a bigger group that actually has some kind of like bigger picture, maybe that someone else can use, and there are examples that they have public APIs and someone else can use that. So that might not be completely true, but you definitely, I think in most cases, no one need to care about deployment and uptime as well. So that's that. And yeah, that's my 2 cents on the matter. And thank you for your attention. And yeah, I will look forward to the questions, because it was maybe a bit controversial, but yeah, let's see.
Thank you, Tomas, for your presentation. And we have like 5 questions. We'll take probably a couple of them. And first is, having a practical motivation sounds good, but as a researcher, I cannot do all of it. Very good detailed experiments and a good code. So any idea what to do?
Yeah, that's it. I have kind of expected that. I think it's kind of an excuse. Really, personally, I think it's it depends really. If you are on your own and just doing a theory and just doing it for the sake of the theory itself and just moving some, yeah, I mean, who am I to tell you that you should write better code? I mean, my point was maybe more, yeah, I would stick with that. It's maybe more controversial. Learn to code, make better code, because once you leave, I don't know if your plans are to leave academia or maybe to become a founder or of a AI or a machine learning startup. So you will be on your own from the beginning, and believe me, you will pay for it in the long run, because when you code most of the things, then when people come and will look at it, wow, like I could ask my people in Rossum what they think, because about my code, I definitely I'm not the best coder myself, but I would try to adopt this mindset about not necessarily hacking everything and trying your best, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So the next question, are you use some existing OCR system or have you created your
own? That's a good question. We have actually created our own. We have a two OCR system, you might say, in the in the traditional sense. The OCR is actually open source because it was made by Milan Troller in like the beginning of Rossum, and he actually took the, what is it called, Tesseract, I think it was, at the time it was, I think, version 4 alpha or something on LSTMs or GRU, and he just like worked on that, and we actually made it open source. What we use is a little bit different now, but yeah, we built our own.
Thank you. From PhD dropout to head of research, was it hard not only to drive research, but also people in your team?
No, actually. Well, let me dissect it. Was it hard not only to drive research, but also people? Oh, you mean like if I do like research, or like I'm just managing the people, but most of the research I'm actually, that's kind of good thing. I can only point out the direction, but most of the things are doing our researchers, I would say. Even the whole thing, like the whole idea. We have, let's say, have a problem to solve. And I'm actually not the one, I'm not like micromanaging how we will approach it and everything. I think we have, that's a great mindset. We have like, our researchers are individuals that can like propose their own like ideas. So I'm actually not doing research, sadly, but I have no time for it. And
but
it's hard for me. I'm not like, yeah, public speaking is really hard for me, and dealing with people is also very hard for me, but I kind of manage. But if I was to choose what I would like to do, I would definitely do research. Like, that's my thing. But I think, yeah, we will grow, and I will get to that as well, maybe, and someone else replaces me in head of research.
Thank you. And do you in Rossum research write the code for production, or you need quality code just for maintainability, understanding, and other purposes?
Yeah, you know the answer. Yeah, we write. Our researchers are basically writing production code, or at least there is no two-phase, like that you create some kind of prototype, but someone else will code the production version of your code. So we right now are in this mode. I don't know if it's the good approach or not. There's certain, like, yeah, you can make it both ways, but where we are at right now, then our researchers really need to produce good code and working code because it goes to production. So that's that.
And actually, I want to mention also that in Rossum, they do code review, which works both way. Like first juniors do code review and then seniors do code review, which helps a lot to learn both ways. So I think it's actually a good point to Petr Marek saying, hey, we are doing code review. They don't have special people, but they're trying to kind of adapt it that everybody learns.
Yeah, that's definitely one like great point, because like in academia you don't do that at all. I think like no one cares, but like you have to have the code that works and is maintainable and tested ideally and everything, because it needs to work, and you cannot just like patch everything. And yeah, like that's completely different story. Like it's more of a software engineering kind of like programming than like research, but yeah, it's good to adopt these practices in research as well.